Scotch pride, Scotch freedom. Oh yeah, everybody's welcome as long as they come here legally.
200,000 voices flooded through Scotland. Not a parade, not a march, a rupture. Banners replaced routine. Voices replaced stillness. Streets filled not just for one reason, but because something snapped. A pressure point long ignored, now broken wide open. This was not a planned protest with press kits and stage managers. This was urgency without warning, frustration without filter, a movement that built itself in real time through live feeds, voice notes, forwarded screenshots, and one shared phrase. We're not alone. And when images showed hotels shutting down, contracts pulled, and buses loading at midnight, people did not see process. They saw reaction. They saw power blinking, authority folding, because tonight Scotland is not asking what happens next. Scotland is making sure the world sees it happen. We begin where the noise did, with a rumour strong enough to turn a city into a sentence.
Just arrived. The police are doing their best to keep the protesters on both sides of the spectrum separate from each other. The tension is palpable.
The night, the streets went loud. It starts with a message that seems too sharp for the hour. A blurred screenshot stamped urgent. A friend of a friend says a contract has been ended earlier than expected. Another message claims buses will arrive before first light. Someone else posts a shaky video showing police vans idling near a building that never needed them before. Within a handful of minutes, doorways become decision points. A coat goes on. A buggy is lifted down the stair. A scarf is tied twice, hard. Men in high visibility jackets, women pushing prams, students still wearing the day, shopkeepers with flour on their sleeves, all stepping into air that feels newly electric. Phones blink awake and begin to speak. A live stream from Glasgow says, "Stand up tonight." A live stream from Dundee says, "Share before they stop us." Pins light up across a map like a trail of sparks, from Edinburgh to Aberdeen, from Inverness to Stirling, from coastal towns to inland estates whose names rarely reach the news. Inside some hotels, lobby lights go dark earlier than usual. A revolving door locks with a clean final sound. A handwritten sign appears, the word maintenance travelling faster than certainty. At rear gates, a coach reverses with the steady patience of an object that has learned the weight of human lives. To the crowd, the sequence is obvious. They came and the state folded. To the paperwork, it looks like another transfer night, witnessed more closely than usual. Outside is a chant. Inside is a list. Now we go through the keyholes. Inside the rooms. In the rooms, there is no chant. There is a zipper's teeth and a phone that does not stop humming. A child kneels on a mattress and traces the wash of blue light across the ceiling, the way other children learn to read a clock. His mother folds shirts into a suitcase that has never fully unpacked. Temporary, she has learned, does not always mean short. It sometimes means indeterminate. Down the corridor, a man watches a live stream of the building he is currently inside. He recognises the entrance mat, the tinted glass, the glare on the sign. He hears the words that strangers attach to him. Cost, problem, plan, and lowers the volume as if that could lower the weight. No one chose this room, this town, this role in someone else's argument. They came because a form told them to. They stayed because files move slowly and uncertainty moves quickly. Outside, the word is collapse. Inside, the reality is movement again, a repetition that scrapes the edges of hope. From the rooms, we step back into the crowd, not to see a mass, but to meet its faces. Faces in the tide. From a distance, the protest looks like a single mood. Up close, it separates into reasons you can hold in your hand. A veteran walks near the front. A blazer, 2 medals polished to the colour of old promises. He says he marched once for his country abroad and now marches for it at home. He speaks of budgets, of charities stretched thin, of a friend sleeping on a sofa 3 bus routes away while hotels glow behind security. Behind him, a shop worker in a supermarket fleece pushes a buggy with one hand and carries a cardboard sign with the other. House our own first. Her rent has risen again and again. Her place on the social housing list feels carved in stone. She does not hate anyone in those hotels. She does not know whom to blame. She only knows it rarely seems to be her turn. A cafe owner watches the line go by and thinks in the arithmetic that keeps doors open. The hotel is full, but not with customers. Lunchtime used to be a storm. Now it is a quiet sea. Energy bills climb. Footfall drops. He tells his story without anger, as though clarity could pay an invoice. A young man lifts his phone above the crowd and speaks in a rhythm the algorithm understands. Stay with me. If the feed cuts, refresh. The protest is his set, the chants his soundtrack, the night his revenue balanced on a dwindling charge. Across the police line, another crowd carries banners that read, "Refugees welcome." Local church volunteers in bright vests pass water through gaps. Students who have read enough history to be alarmed by the volume of this anger. Caseworkers who know the paperwork timeline by heart and know how long people are made to wait while being told to wait some more. 2 lanes of people on the same street, both claiming community, both speaking of safety, both imagining futures, both certain of the harm that will come if the other vision wins. When 2 ideas share one street, someone must hold the space between them. We go to the line that breathes. 2 lines. 1 street officers in high visibility vests stand shoulder to shoulder, not immovable, but practiced. The instructions are simple and repeated like the click of a metronome. Keep moving, step back this way, please. A stroller's wheel bumps a boot and is guided gently around. A sign thumps once against a clear visor, then lowers. On a side street, breath fogs in the cold and a scuffle blooms and is gathered up quickly. An arrest that is clean. And procedural turns into a handful of clips, and those clips take on a life larger than the moment they captured. Everyone in this narrow space is hoping the next 10 seconds are not the 10 seconds the internet will rehearse for weeks. Above the street, another kind of life begins. An idea turned into a figure turned into a banner. We meet the character that numbers become. The 200,000 by midnight, the number is no longer just a count, it is a character. 200,000. It appears in chat overlays and bold captions. It sits in block capitals over drone shots that could be from anywhere. It is repeated into megaphones, typed into captions, shouted to passing cameras by people who heard it 5 seconds earlier on someone else's phone. Officials speak of large crowds. Police sources speak of significant unrest. Their language is slow and conditional. The number is fast and absolute. It sounds like scale. It feels like power. It tells people who stayed home that something vast occurred without them. It tells supporters they are not fringe, they are legion. It tells opponents that ignoring this will cost them. The truth is that no one has counted with care in the dark. No live stream lens can measure a moving crowd. By the time a method lands, the myth has taken root. The number stops describing the crowd and starts defining it. And once a number defines a thing, the thing begins to behave like the number. Where numbers go, imitations follow. We turn to the edits that outrun context. Distorted signal alongside the real footage. Imitation spreads faster than verification. An old video from another year is relabeled as Tonight in Edinburgh. A scheduled bus transfer becomes mass removals underway. A brief scuffle loops until it looks like the whole city is one unbroken fight. Labels appear beneath certain posts missing context. More information available, but context scrolls poorly. Certainty gathers clicks. Each side edits the moment to match the conclusion it carried to the street. Accuracy arrives late. Careful, second-guessing itself. Outrage arrives first, breathless, sure of its lines. A woman speaks into her camera. I was there. This caption is not true. A reply arrives instantly. Do your research. Another voice says share before it disappears. In the noise, the measured voice crawls. The absolute voice sprints. If the truth is not first to the scene, the truth must take the long way around. While the feeds argue, another set of rooms is very busy. We go to the lit windows where decisions gather. Rooms of power, far from the chance. In rooms washed with white light, screens glow with maps of Scotland, dotted by moving markers. These are not for public consumption. They are for the people whose work is to make sure no one dies tonight. Lines show crowd flows. Pins track roadblocks. Traffic is redirected and then redirected again. Briefings stack on tables. Sites emptied. Sites still occupied. Threats reported and rumours disproved. Phrases that have been sanded by policy pass across the room: restraint, proportionality, prevent escalation. Civil servants and ministers speak another set of careful words costs. Capacity, optics, precedent. For months, the use of hotels as accommodation for people seeking safety has been politically charged. It is expensive, visible and vulnerable to nights exactly like this one. Reports about spiralling bills and mismanaged contracts have already eroded trust. Now, those numbers have faces in the street and flares above roofs. Some argue that this is why the system must be unwound faster, move people out, end hotel usage, show you listened. Others warn that collapsing a fragile accommodation network in response to a wave of protest will set a template that invites more waves. If volume can rewrite policy tonight, then volume will return tomorrow.
I didn't care too much when I was told that I was living in a hotel, expecting that it would be for just a short period, but ended that to live there in a hotel for 1 year.
In the corner of every conversation sits the number 200,000, not as a data point, but as a spectre of legitimacy. Away from the dashboards and the slogans, ordinary life carries the weight. We return to where the cameras rarely linger. What are the cameras? Miss A school corridor hosts a notice board with uniform donation flyers written in several languages. A receptionist at a general practitioner's office posts a sign that says interpreter available, please ask at the desk. A volunteer pantry restocks shelf-stable milk and writes a sign that says take what you need and leave some for the next person. A housing office pins up a polite sheet that says the waiting list is closed. Wide shots can lie by omission. They hide rooms where integration looks like photocopied forms and the ache of waiting. They hide that some locals have not seen a dentist in years and some new arrivals have not slept an unbroken night since they crossed a border. They hide that the system is strained and that people are not the strain. Even as people bear the strain's consequences, a teacher carefully cuts name cards to pronounce each one correctly. A council worker prints a list of heat bank locations for winter. A worship leader gathers blankets. After a service, a student union posts a guide to housing rights. The unglamorous scaffolding that keeps a community standing is built by hands that rarely make the news. Beneath the feelings, a ledger waits. We open it together. The moral arithmetic. Remove the slogans and the fight becomes a kind of arithmetic that most people do not want to do out loud. How many rooms exist and where, in which postcodes, on which bus routes, near which schools and clinics? How many people need them and for how long? For 1 month, for 6 months, for a year, for longer than anyone expected when they first packed a bag? How far can the word temporary stretch before it becomes cruel? Before it turns from a reassurance into a warning label? Who sits where in the queue for a home? And who is quietly moved to the back when the conversation grows awkward? What does a stretch system owe to the next person who arrives, and what does it owe to the person who has been waiting so long that waiting itself has become a burden with a name? Behind the numbers live other columns that do not fit neatly on a spreadsheet. How many caseworkers can carry how many caseloads before kindness phrase? How many interpreters can be scheduled for how many clinics when appointments double but staff do not? How many school places exist within walking distance, and how many children will learn to read new alphabets while sitting at a desk that was borrowed from a storage room? How many nights can one family move before the boxes stop opening? How many times can a council promise later before later begins to sound like never? Arithmetic is not an enemy, it is a map. But maps do not choose destinations, people do. Maps can tell you the distance between 2 points. They cannot tell you which point deserves to be reached first. Maps can draw a boundary. They cannot teach a boundary to be kind. Arithmetic can add up costs to the penny. It cannot add up dignity unless we decide to count it. The veteran folds his blazer over a chair and sets his medals carefully on top. Metal meeting fabric with the gravity of memory. He phones an old friend to check if he got home safe and ends the call with a sigh that does not quite reach language. The shop worker sorts envelopes and marks next month's rent with a thick pen stroke, then writes a second line beneath it labelled food, and a third labelled electricity, and a fourth labelled shoes, for the child now growing faster than pay. The cafe owner recalculates margins on a scrap of paper and then recycles it, calls the supplier to ask for 3 more days of grace, hangs up gently and turns the lights on anyway because habit is its own small courage. The streamer plugs his phone into the wall and watches a graph that looks like a coastline, peaks and coves where attention washed in and then out, wondering whether the next upload pays the bill or merely pays for the chance to try again. Add to them the council accountant who stares at a cell that refuses to balance and whispers there must be a way. Add the teacher who stretches 30 desks to fit 32 children and chooses to make the extra 2 feel wanted rather than wedged in. Add the parish volunteer who knows every first name on the blanket list and pretends not to notice when pride prevents someone from taking 2. Each person believes they have the simple answer because each is holding a piece of the problem that looks from up close like the whole. Each of them is likely right about their own life. That is the trouble with simple answers. They travel lighter than complicated truths and therefore arrive first. And once they arrive, they ask to be believed before the rest of the story can even sit down. Night cannot last forever. The light returns and with it new language for old problems. Softer voices for sharp questions and a chance to sort what happened from what was said about what happened. Aftershock. By dawn, the noise drops, but the impact remains. Some doors stay dark, others open with blinds drawn low. Statements appear from official accounts composed in careful type. Operational changes, no link to demonstrations, ongoing review. Protesters call it a win. The proof, they say, is the empty driveway where a bus once stood. Advocates call it disruption born of desperation, layered over lives that had little stability left to lose. Officials call it necessary transition. Critics call it reaction without strategy. Bus shelters shine with fine rain. Timetables blink to announce diversions. Spreadsheets gain new tabs labelled contingency. Group chats shift from where now to what next. The question is no longer whether the system bent. It did. The question is whether the future bends to planning or to pressure. Patterns repeat across places and years, but each place writes its own. Scotland lifts its pen. Echoes and lessons. Scotland is not alone in this geometry of streets and screens and statements, yet the lines here are drawn in local chalk. The word we has centuries in it. The words welcome and wary live on adjoining doors. The weather teaches patience. The history teaches memory. A bilingual welcome sign faces an arrivals board. A community hall that hosted a K-Live last month sets out twice as many chairs for a forum tonight. A council ward prints leaflets in several languages and serves tea and biscuits in exactly one shape. This is how a place practices being a place. Tonight's lesson is not that one side is fully right and the other fully wrong. It is that both speak from a fear of vanishing. Vanishing from the queue for a home, vanishing from a nation's concern, vanishing under paperwork that says pending and means wait without certainty. Policy at its best is the art of preventing people from vanishing. To test that claim, we go to the smallest object that can hold a life. A room with a door, a modest flat, a real key, the steady sound of a lock engaging to welcome rather than to keep out. A kitchen light that does not flicker. A child's drawing pinned to a refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a thistle. No chant equals the feeling of a door that shuts and knows your name. No protest replaces the quiet of a tenancy that lasts long enough to relax. No live stream can contain the sound a room makes when it decides you live there. A landlord signs a compliance form. A caseworker closes a file not because someone moved again, but because someone stayed. A neighbour knocks to say hello because that is still how places become more than addresses. If you want to measure a policy, count keys. If you want to measure a night, count how many people slept. We return to the figure that framed the night and ask what story it wanted to tell. The story we tell about numbers. 200,000 is a size and a symbol. It is too exact for a night that moved like water and too useful to ignore when you need a word that sounds like scale. We use numbers to carry feelings too heavy to say plainly. Pride that we were many, fear that we were outnumbered, belonging that stretches across a city, exclusion that squeezes someone to the edge. The number is a banner that anyone can lift without paying the cost of a sentence. A radio host asks, was it really that many? A caller answers, it felt like more because feeling does not wait for a method. A fact checker says feeling is not counting and is correct in the way a ruler is correct. A sociologist replies that feeling shapes what counts, because what we believe to be large becomes large in the choices we make tomorrow. The danger is not the number. The danger is letting the number make policy before people do. Letting the digit decide the dignity. The gift is not certainty. The gift is humility about how fast certainty spreads and how slowly careful truth arrives with its notebooks and its margins and its hesitations. There are honest ways to count and all of them are fussy. You draw a boundary on a map and estimate density per square metre. You take high and low bounds. You correct for movement. You admit where your method breaks. You compare photographs taken from the same vantage at different hours. You factor in the way a crowd breathes and thins and swells. You know that any answer at night is an approximation wearing a coat 2 sizes too big, and still you try because counts become budgets and budgets become beds and beds become sleep. Numbers should be servants, not masters. They should kneel to the question, not crown themselves as the answer. When a number helps a child turn a key in a door, keep it. When a number helps someone vanish into a category, put it down and pick a better tool. The night ends not with a verdict, but with 2 people who love the same street in different ways and manage for 1 ordinary minute to share the pavement.
There's too many immigrants in this area.
Mum Audrey blames her struggles on immigration too.
They're not. I've got an older son who lives with me. Can't get a house, but yet come into this country and you get a house and they bother. And I know people say they don't, but they do. There's more black in every other colour than there is white. That sounds terrible, doesn't it?
I suppose the opposing view to that is, look, it's a multicultural society.
2 voices, 1 street. At a bus stop in the pale morning, the veteran and the volunteer end up 2 steps apart. The shelter glass is beaded with rain and a poster curls at one corner. The veteran's boots are scuffed in a way that does not apologise. The volunteer's hands are chafed from hours of holding a banner that was heavier than it looked. They are both tired in the same human way, the kind of tired that makes silence feel like conversation. They nod without ceremony. No theory passes between them, only the thin warmth of recognition that the night was long for both. The bus arrives. A handful of passengers climb aboard with that particular morning choreography. Card to reader, glance to driver, a small thank you that is almost a whisper. The driver taps the wheel as though keeping time with the city's pulse, a rhythm learned on early shifts and kept for late ones. The doors close with a sigh that could be relief. Everyone wants home, even those who are already there. Across the city, the shop worker turns her key and closes her door with a soft click that sounds like authority returning. She leans her head against the wood for the length of one breath and lets it go. The cafe owner flips the sign to open and lets hope do its quiet work while the kettle begins to murmur. The streamer edits a thumbnail and tries for one last wave, then another, then decides to sleep and let the graph be a graph. The child in a new room watches sunlight climb a wall and whispers, "Is this one the last move?" And a parent answers, "We hope so." And for this morning, hope is enough to unpack one more box. If a country is a promise, nights like this are how the promise gets tested, not in the raw, but in the morning after, when buses run and kettles boil and keys turn and people who disagree still share the same weather and the same timetable and, on better days, the same joke. The proof of who we are is not the loudest hour, but the ordinary one that follows it. We have walked the night together, counted what could be counted, and named what could only be felt. Now we hand it back to you. What do you think truly happened tonight? Was the apparent collapse triggered by protest, or did it reveal a system already coming apart at its seams? Tell us what you saw, what you felt, and what you believe in the comments. If you want the story behind the headlines rather than the headlines alone, stay with us, subscribe. We will keep following the people inside the numbers and the numbers inside the stories. And if this helped you think past slogans like the video